Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon, and we're going to talk about something Jerry Seinfeld said in a recent interview. He said that Hollywood's basically over. The movie business is basically over. And that echoes the sentiment that some other writers and industry analysts are pointing out, that we're over Hollywood. We're beyond peak Hollywood, that the jobs are going to dry up, the movies are underperforming, the general public is getting sick of a lot of the stuff coming out of Hollywood. For various reasons, people are going back to old movies, old TV shows, and then video games are going back to old video games. And this is interesting to hear from him. Now, Jerry Seinfeld never really had much of a movie career. He did B-movie and couple other things, I think, but for the most part, he's right in what he's saying. He's like, just everybody's got this belief that they can just jump from like television to the movies, and even TV is not what it once was. And it's kind of ironic because Hollywood spent so many months on strike trying to get better working conditions, and by the time they got better working conditions, there wasn't much of Hollywood left to work in. So we're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. If you want exclusive podcasts, go out to patreon.com/clownfishtv. We're going to try to grow that as sort of a life raft in case this YouTube thing blows up. I have no idea what's going to happen. On the internet even. But yeah, this is coming from Variety. Jerry Seinfeld says the movie business is over, and film doesn't occupy the pinnacle in cultural hierarchy anymore. Disorientation replaced it. Jerry Seinfeld, according to the article, is finally a movie director, and he's talking about Unfrosted on Netflix. That's something he's doing. It's the fictional account of the creation of the Pop-Tarts toaster pastries. This is what he's doing now. Have you guys ever seen The Food That Built America? If you've never watched that show, you need to watch that show. They actually had an episode on Pop-Tarts, but I love that show because it shows how a lot of the things that we take for granted were just happy accidents, and sometimes the food brands that cultivate this really kind of friendly exterior got to where they're at by being absolutely ruthless, Anyway, he said it was totally new to me. I thought I had done some cool stuff, but it was nothing like the way these people work. They're so dead serious. They don't have any idea that the movie business is over. They have no idea. Asked to elaborate on a more serious note, Seinfeld continued, film doesn't occupy the pinnacle in the social, cultural hierarchy that it did for most of our lives. When a movie came out, if it was good, we all went to see it. We all discussed it. We quoted lines and scenes we liked. Now we're walking through a fire hose of water just trying to see. Yeah, he's actually right in this regard. We've talked about this multiple times on the channel before, kind of the death of pop culture. And if you want to talk about Seinfeld, we could talk about, older, it's not really that old, but older TV shows like Seinfeld, like Friends, going back to the 80s, The Cosby Show, all these, maybe not a good analogy, but I'm saying like all these shows that we all watched together, Cheers, and we don't do that anymore. We don't have these cultural touchstones. We've got this really fragmented landscape where there's so much content out there that, if you gain any kind of an audience, it's kind of a miracle. It's very hard to sift through all the content, the fire hose, as he calls it, to find stuff. And very few streaming shows actually become cultural, water cooler moments, I guess, as it were. I'm thinking on Netflix, Stranger Things, Squid Game, and, briefly One Piece, maybe. That was but then it kind of came and went too. They all kind of come and go, right? People talk about them when they're on, and then when they're not on anymore, we forget about it. We're not going to be talking about most of these streaming shows, not even the bigger ones like Stranger Things. I don't think people are going to have the same fondness for Stranger Things in 30 years that people have for Seinfeld or Friends or Cheers or even The Cosby Show, currently. And we have a lot of millennials and Gen Z going back and watching those shows because they are perennial favorites. They do stand the test of time. And a lot of that humor you could not get away with today. I mean, this is Jerry Seinfeld, who famously said that he doesn't play colleges anymore. He doesn't do comedy at colleges because he can't take a joke. And now these people are working in the industry. So what, if anything, has replaced film? He said depression, malaise, I'd say confusion, disorientation replaced the movie business. Everyone I know in show business every day is going, what's going on? How do you do this? What are we supposed to do now? Yeah, it's true. I've actually seen it in the people we've been talking to. Like, we've got people that were working on Emmy-nominated shows. We had people that worked in Hollywood for years. They were displaced by the strike, and now because Hollywood is trimming the fat, they're cutting a lot of shows. You have a lot of these people, bussing tables in LA now. He said, I've done enough stuff. I have my own thing, which is more valuable than it's ever been. I have my own thing, which is more valuable than it's ever been. Stand-up is like you're a cabinet maker and everybody needs a guy who's good with wood. There are trees everywhere, but to make a nice table, it's not so easy. So the metaphor is that if you have good craft and craftsmanship, you're kind of impervious to the whims of the industry. Audiences are now flocking to stand-up because it's something you can't fake, he said. It's like platform diving. You could say you're a platform diver, but in 2 seconds, we can see if you are or you aren't. That's what people are like about stand-up. They can trust it. Everything else is fake. He's not wrong. And I think it's the same reason that podcasts are kind of taking over now, taking over the nightly news. Commentators, they want content, not saying just us, but like ours, that is, a little more authentic than what they're going to get from Hollywood. Seinfeld recently popped up in the series finale of Larry David's HBO series Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yeah, apparently they made a joke about the last episode of Seinfeld and him going to jail. Is he allowed to talk to Larry David? Wasn't Larry David canceled for choking Elmo on live TV? Now, see, I think that's freaking hysterical, but God, people lost their shit. Like, I think it's hilarious that he freaking choked Elmo on live TV because God knows everyone's wanted to choke Elmo. And people right now are like, oh my God, no, not Elmo. But I'm like, yeah, every parent that's had to listen to Elmo on repeat forever. I've been there. We had many, many Sesame Street DVDs. And my God, I'm like, you know what? If I had a chance to choke Elmo, I might choke him too. Anyway, he said a lot of people have given Seinfeld flack over the years for the ending of Seinfeld. And he admitted in GQ the finale had bothered him a little bit all these years. Yeah, it was kind of anticlimactic, right? And I love Seinfeld, but the ending was like, what the frick? I don't believe in regret, he said. It's arrogant to think you could have done something different. You couldn't. That's why you did what you did. But me and Jeff Schaefer and Larry were standing around talking about TV finales, which ones we thought were great. He said, I feel Mad Men was the greatest. A lot of people liked the Bob Newhart one. Mary Tyler Moore was okay. Mad Men was the greatest final moment of a series I've ever seen. So satisfying, so funny. And they say that they had sat and watched the Seinfeld finale trying to figure out what went wrong. It was obviously about the final scene, leaving them in the jail cell. Yeah, that was kind of harsh. It's just like, yeah, we're going to stick their asses in jail. And that's it. That's how the show ends. There was no more punchlines. They're just doing stand-up in prison. But I had a friend send this over a couple days ago, and it goes along with what Jerry Seinfeld is saying. And this is coming from Harper's Magazine. The life and death of Hollywood film and television writers face an existential threat, and they've got the end on Hollywood. And I think for a lot of people, it is going to be the end. I think a lot of people, we had very good times where there was lots of money being thrown around and pretty much everybody was getting greenlit. All these shows were getting greenlit, and you might have spent $100 million on a show that 100 people watched. And then they had to take the right off, in the case of something like Willow or whatever on Disney Plus. And those days are over. Even the days of the $500 million budgets for movies. I mean, we did a video earlier today talking about Disney hiding the money for Ant-Man and the Wasp. That apparently they spent over $300 million on this movie, and everybody thought it was like a $200 million movie. I'm like, no, there's no way. Look at more than half the movie takes place in the quantum realm, which is expensive. And this was a very, very big budget movie, but they're not going to tell people like, yeah, we actually lost another $100 million. It looks bad. So I think in years to come, people are going to look at this era of television. I know some people in Hollywood were calling it peak TV. They're not going to look at like peak TV. They're going to look at like peak idiocy. You spent how much money on a show that like nobody watched in the hopes that somebody might maybe possibly watch it. Meanwhile, YouTubers can work out of their friggin' basements and make more money for themselves than you guys made for the studio. It's insanity. But if you scroll down, you get this part here. And it says that the industry is in a deep and existential crisis. The head of a mid-sized studio told me in early August, we're in the lounge of the Soho House in West Hollywood. It's probably the deepest and most existential crisis it's ever been in. The writers are losing out. The middle layer of craftsmen are losing out. The top end of the talent are making more money than they ever have, but the nuts and bolts people who make it go are losing out dramatically. Hollywood had become the winner-takes-all economy. As of 2021, CEOs at the majority of the largest companies and conglomerates in the industry drew salaries between 200 and 3,000. Wait, 200 and 300,000? Is that what they mean? 200 and 3,000 times greater than those of the median employees. Holy crap. While writer-producer royalties such as Shonda Rhimes and Ryan Murphy had in recent years signed deals reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars, a slightly larger group of A-listers such as Smith had carved out comfortable or middle-class lives, many more working in the bare-bones, short-term writers' rooms, often between stints, without much hope for more steady work. As of 2023, among those lucky enough to be employed, the median TV writer-producer was making 23% less a week in real dollars than their peers a decade before, and they were talking about why they went on strike. The problem is that they kind of got in on it too late because they said the business of Hollywood had undergone a foundational change. This is when they went on strike for better working conditions. The new effective bosses of the industry, colossal conglomerates, asset management companies, and private equity firms, had not been simply pushing workers too hard and grabbing more than their fair share of the profits. They had been stripping value from the production system like copper pipes from a house, threatening the sustainability of the studios themselves. Yeah, when we're talking about all these studios merging to survive, because they all chased the steaming, yeah, pretty much was a steaming pile of shit, the streaming chuck wagon. They all thought they were going to be the next Netflix. And so many of them blew themselves up in the process, like Paramount. Like, I don't know what the hell is going to happen to Paramount. And these are studios that have been around forever, like since pretty much the beginning of Hollywood. And, we're looking at the very real possibility that Warner Brothers and Paramount and Universal and all these like legacy studios are just going to be brand names. It's kind of like electronics now, like RCA and Zenith and all these brands that were big for years that actually meant something to people. They're just trademarks now that cheap ass, cheap ass no name electronics companies throw on something like, oh, this is an RCA remote. These are RCA headphones because, dad and grandpa remember RCA and it was, they were good TVs back in the day. That's what's going to happen here. We're going to have like Warner Brothers branded streaming shit and Paramount branded streaming shit. And it might all come from the same tap, same sphincter. It's just like, oh, this is a Warner Brothers thing. This is a Paramount thing. But it actually isn't because those studios won't exist like they do now. They said today's business side does not have the necessary vested interest in the business and the health of what we think of as Hollywood, a place and system in which creativity is exchanged for capital. The union wins did not begin to address this fundamental problem. People really ragged on us. Well, I mean people working in the industry or people on Twitter or whatever, not most of our listeners, but people really ragged on us because we were like, this strike is not going to go the way that you think. In fact, I think I had a video up that said the strike is not going to go the way that you think. You're not going to everybody's not going to walk away from this thing making twice as much money. Basically, the top earners are going to make more and they're actually going to cut a bunch of productions to get rid of surplus employees, right? They don't need you. They're not going to make a bunch of shitty streaming shows. They're going to try to make one or two good streaming shows because that's worth more than just throwing spaghetti against the wall and trying to make it stick. And there's not enough room for everybody. So a lot of people are going to be pushed out of Hollywood. And we said this was going to happen. I said, all you're going to do is force their hand. And you might get a temporary deal, but it's not going to benefit everybody. And sure enough, here we are. Hashtag Clownfish was right. Clownfish was right again. And I hate to be that guy. I'm older. I come from a corporate background. I know how these people think. I've been on the other side of the desk. I've had to make tough decisions. And they're going to look at this like, well, if you're going to ask for more money and we got to save money anyway, and 95% of the shows that we're greenlighting aren't performing, I guess we're just not going to make as many shows. And all these studios are saying that they're not going to make as many shows because there's no point. Like Seinfeld says, a fire hose, and you have to sift through it. So I think we're going to see a lot fewer shows and movies. They're going to try to be more focused about what they make. And that might be good. It might be bad. I have no idea. I mean, the upside is there is like an unlimited amount of content from Hollywood. You could turn Hollywood off tomorrow and never make a new thing again. And there's no person on this planet that could watch every movie, every TV show, read every comic book, play every video game that's ever been made. It's impossible. We could freeze pop culture right now, kind of like Doctor Who with the moment where they froze Gallifrey. We could freeze it right now and just be like, this is it. This is all the pop culture that's ever going to be made. I mean, it's a travesty, but I'm just saying the fact that so many people are going back and watching old movies and they're watching old TV shows and they're reading old comic books and they're playing old video games, it tells me that people don't care if it's new or not. It's new to them. I've never, if you've never watched Friends, it's new to you. You've got 10 seasons of Friends. I think it was on for 10 years. 10 seasons of Friends you could watch. If you've never watched 90s Star Trek, my God, you've got Next Gen, Voyager, Deep Space Nine. If you want to, you can watch Enterprise too. I guess that counts. I mean, again, all of this entertainment at your fingertips. You don't need to watch anything new. And it's a shame because you're not going to get anything new either. But in some ways, I think it's preferable to like the bastardized, zombified versions of reboots of shows that we loved coming back. I think I would have preferred if Doctor Who ended with Peter Capaldi. Just end it. That's it. We can go on hiatus and maybe someday somebody can bring Doctor Who back. But we've got 50 years of Doctor Who. Well, I guess if you count the decade plus it was off, like 35 or 40 years. But you know what I'm saying? Like there's like an infinite amount of content that's already out there. And so this is the new reality, guys. This is probably the end of Hollywood. And I don't know. How do you feel about it? I mean, when you've got people like Jerry Seinfeld saying, yeah, it's over. It's basically Hollywood as we've known it is over. You just do what you got to do. What do you think? Leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you later.